Thank you very much. And Robin, you mentioned on the chat that we could also contact COP4CBD. Can you explain why and how?
Yes, just the question was about how, as an expert, can I send some messages to NFPs? And so in the COP4CBD project, we have this sequence of, as you showed today, training session to have some experts updated on the CBD functioning and substance function and process. And then we organize training session on substance topics to update the expert on the topic that will be addressed during substance meeting. And then we are also organizing workshop on these topics to produce some notes. And these notes are discussed with the European and associated countries' national focal point in Brussels, or, for example, just previous substance meetings. So this is a pathway to have some expertise from you going to the NFPs. So it starts with the call of experts of the project, and you can be involved responding and registering to this call of experts. And also maybe I can also mention that some experts also inputs can be sent also, I think, directly to the Secretariat and can be published as informative document on the CBD website. I know that there has been one from the Future Earth and Biodiscovery Project, and it has been published on the CBD website. So this is also, I think, one other way to contribute. I will paste the link in the chat as an example.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robin. And the idea also of the Maite presentation is to show you that there are also plenty of network next to the CBD, in the CBD family, and that's also some way to be involved in the process. So, for example, the Global Partnership of Plant Conservation is something very well known and is really closely involved in the world CBD processes. So I hope these different feedbacks from experts on the field can help you understand more the reality of the CBD processes. I don't know if anyone has another question. We have still a bit time.
Maybe, Pierre, if I can add just a little thing, is there's also this working group, ATEX or others that are set up by the Secretariat. And this, for the ATEG, as far as I know, this is nomination from the parties. So you can also contact your national focal point on CBD to manifest yourself saying, I'm available for distribution to CBD. And if your national focal point will have the will to, it can nominate you to one of these groups. So feel free also to contact your national focal point to have more information about what you can do at the national level. Because there will also be some needs for expertise on the implementation side, not to get information from the bottom to the top, to the CBD, but also on the top-down movement for the implementation. So there is also this position that can be applied.
Thank you, Robin. Hendrik, if I'm not wrong, you were also a member of the Substa Bureau, I think, a few years ago. And it was a very interesting question before, after my presentation, about the difference between assessment and recommendation, and why the Substa does not share assessment, but mainly recommendation. Have you something to say about that?
Yes, I can say something on that. Now, if I understand your question correctly, with assessment you mean the IPBES assessments. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's the vocabulary used for the IPBES, and basically the discussion was about the difference between Substa and IPBES. Yeah.
Well, as I already said in my intervention, the IPBES is far more a science policy interface than the CBD process, which is a very political process. The assessment, IPBES assessments themselves is, and I'm sure that IPBES will disagree with me on this, the assessment itself is a review of what we know about a certain issue. It is a huge scientific work, which is extremely valuable, but that is basic scientific technical product. What IPBES, the unicity of IPBES and also IPCC is that from these assessments they derive a summary for policymakers. Now, the assessment can be accepted by IPBES, but it is the summary for policymakers that goes through the bottleneck of a science policy process. Now, the summary for policymakers becomes a political, is approved, and there is a process in which the summary for policymakers can the Substa will not renegotiate the summary for policymakers. It will only base, the executive secretary will only propose a number of recommendations to the COP for action based on the summary for policymakers. So the assessment is not something that can enter just like that within the CBD process. It goes through the process of the IPBES plenary, approval of or adoption of the summary for policymakers, and then drafting of recommendations by, in first instance, the executive secretary and the secretariat and whoever they invite to help them with, drafting recommendations to COP. Now, if I read in the meeting chat now, the understanding was around how much leeway the Substa has itself to determine what kind of recommendation it provides. Does COP ask for recommendations on X, Y, Z, and Substa has to respond to each, or does Substa have the possibility? Well, actually, the Substa can only respond to requests from COP. That is very clear. Substa cannot just come up with something out of what the COP has asked. The mandate of Substa is determined by a decision of COP. There is no way that Substa can just out of the blue come up with something that is not being requested. And in fact, that is one of the main characters and main difficulties of all these processes. That is that whatever is not requested by COP will not be considered. This is something we saw with the non-uptake, unfortunately, in the CBD process of the previous Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which was also a fantastic piece of work. But what we saw that when this was presented to a meeting to the COP process, there were a number of parties who adamantly just said, no, we're not going to consider this because we haven't asked for it. More recently, we had another of those examples where something very scientifically very valuable was prepared, which was not taken up by the CBD process because it didn't go through the correct procedures. And that was the result of the IPBES IPCC workshop on biodiversity and climate change. That was prior to COP15. we saw there that the outcome of this workshop was very valuable, but it had not gone, this workshop report had not gone or was not approved by IPBES plenary. So during Substar, prior to COP15, a number of parties adamantly refused to consider the workshop report because it had not gone through due process. And for one of the things which is extremely important to understand this political process is that due process is extremely important. If due process is not followed, that is a fantastic argument by some parties to simply discard the work that is being done. I hope this answers your question. And of course, if I see Christina Raab's request in the chat, the Substack has absolutely no space for judgment calls. Absolutely not. The Substack recommends, and that's it. Hope this helps.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much for this clarification. And I have another question. It's about your experience on the CBD process. It's what do you see about the relationship between IPBES and Substar from the beginning? Do you think it's better organized now, or the parties needs to work on it maybe a bit more?
Well, that I think is a bit of a difficult question, difficult and dangerous. Difficult because there has been quite a bit of evolution in the way that the relation between IPBES and CBD has evolved. Now, during the very first beginning of the establishment of IPBES, neither IPBES nor the CBD really had a stable view on how this relation had to be. There were a number of parties within CBD who had all sorts of opinions and positions on how IPBES should contribute to the CBD process. And there were also quite a number of IPBES members, which are also countries, who had their own views and positions on how IPBES should work and how IPBES should contribute to different multilateral environmental agreements. That took a few years to filter out. At this moment, as far as I can judge, and I'm ready to stand corrected, the processes have stabilized a lot. The CBD has decided, the CBD COP has decided on a process on how to deal with the outcome of Substar processes, and the IPBES has decided on ways how to deal with requests coming from CBD. So for me, this is now much more stable and much more fluid than it was in the beginning. Now, do I see how this evolves and how this should evolve? I'd rather not go too much into detail on that, because that is something which is very political. This may evolve. One of the main issues that we see that is being discussed in IPBES and also CBD is collaboration with, respectively, IPCC and UNFCCC, and that is something which is at times quite interesting as a debate, and we will have to see how these things evolve. We can only hope, and I that's the only personal opinion that I will voice on this. I can only hope that this collaboration will strengthen in the future, because as we all know, biodiversity and climate change are so intricately related that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to deal with them separately. But that is my personal opinion, and I leave it to that. Thank you very much. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Jorge?
Thank you, Pierre. I have a question for, I would be curious to hear the view of the last speakers on something that we heard this morning. This morning we learned about the challenges of global biodiversity governance and the importance of national implementation to be able to achieve that. And one of the questions that was made this morning was whether is there a need for more compliance? Do we need more legal systems to ensure implementation? Or can we achieve the objectives of the CBD in a different way? Is the legal approach the best approach, or should we try different approaches? That's the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Robin, do you want to
Not
try?
sure of getting it, Jorge. Sorry.
No worries, everyone. It's probably me. So this morning we heard about the challenge of global governance and how the effectiveness of the CBD is really at the national level with the implementation. And implementation at the national level is one of the biggest challenges of the CBD at the same time. So how can we ensure this compliance, this implementation of the CBD without, there's the legal approach, being taken to court and so on, but what other mechanisms are there, and is the legal approach the best suited for what we are trying to do?
Regarding the fact that it is not binding, actually. So I think there are two levels, maybe several, depending on the parties. There is this whole process from COP15 with the planning, monitoring, reporting and reviewing, which is not binding, but which shows a collective dynamic. And I think this can be an incentive for the parties to do something, because we will have some comparison with the national report, maybe. So this is, I think, one level. And the other level is the willingness of the party to implement and to integrate the objectives of the convention inside their planning and their steps. But this is the way it is encompassed. And also the European level, we have this European level who can also coordinate things, which could help regarding maybe some targets of the GBF, which needs some coordination. So this could be done at these three levels, but all things rely on the willingness of the parties. So I think aside from this, we can only facilitate this aspect, in my view, but maybe I have a restricting view. But maybe Hendrik.
Well, I will try to formulate something which is politically correct. That is that the thing is that strengthening the implementation of the CBD is something we all want. That is for sure. The main hindrances for that are, first and foremost, there's a legal hindrance, and that is that the CBD is a soft law convention, which means that there's no biodiversity police. There's no international biodiversity police, and there's no way to enforce CBD decisions except for the name and shame that could possibly be done once a party does not implement the CBD in a correct way. And that will never happen because most of the non-implementation occurs in countries that simply do not have the means to implement the CBD in the way that it is foreseen. And that is always one of the main excuses, and a correct excuse, for non-implementation of the CBD. That is one thing. So CBD being rather soft law. Second is that, and that is very fundamental, the whole basis of our multilateral system lies within the sovereignty of the individual countries. That is the basis of everything. So trying to enforce implementation from a supranational level is extremely difficult. The vast majorities of countries will never accept that. It's the only example where some competences in the environment are ultimately brought to a supranational level are some within the UN system, in which UNCLOS is a rather strong example, and within, as Robin alluded to the EU, where the individual EU member states have shared competences related to the environment to a supranational level, being the European Union. So that makes it all extremely complicated for that. But the main reason that most countries that still have a lot of biodiversity will put forward when it comes to non-implementation is the lack of resources. And then, of course, the discussion becomes a totally different one. Thank you. I hope, Jorge, that answers a little bit your question.
And if I may add something, maybe fundings is also a clear way to help implementation with a call of project and so on. Maybe countries are incitated to implement something in exchange of some funds or what I suggested also in my previous presentation is that of course currently the international law is based on the nation sovereignty, but maybe it may change. Maybe we can imagine something more open with scientific communities, with citizen communities that are a bit more involved in international process. We can see, but I think something more open to dialogue can be also very interesting to help implementation of such international policy. So I think now it's time to let Mr. Erita Male from the CBD Secretariat present something about the importance of scientific expertise in the context of CBD. So thank you very much, Hendrik, Robin, and Maite for the presentation. It was really interesting and really interesting discussion. And so I let the floor to Mr. Tamale.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here and that I've enjoyed the discussion. I've been here since the beginning, more or less, and I've really enjoyed the discussion. And I'm happy to share some additional views. I think most of the views actually have been somehow covered by experts like Henrik and the others. And so you might find a bit of my presentation a bit repetitive, but so bear with me. Let me see first of all if I can share. Am I allowed to share? No, you have to allow me. Okay, now it doesn't seem to work for me.
Is it working? Otherwise, I can share your presentation if you.
Let me send it to you, I guess. So it looks like I'm not able to share it here. So I'm sending it to you.
Yes. Okay.
I'll send it to you. Do you have it?
I will check. Yes, I receive it. So I will share it.
All right. Thank you very much once again. So I'm going to share a few highlights, but as I said, some of it has already been mentioned by the previous speakers. Next slide. So basically, what I did was to just take you right from where we all started off, from the text of the convention, which you read guide us our work. And within the many provisions of the convention, really highlight the need for technical, scientific, and technical expertise being deployed and used within the CBD context. And right from the preamble paragraph, that noted the lack of information and knowledge regarding biodiversity and the urgent need to develop scientific, technical, and institutional capacities to implement the convention. And Article 12, which emphasizes research and training, including cooperation in the use of scientific advances in biological biodiversity research. So next slide. And other provisions, for example, Article 17 that talks about or calls for exchange of information, including exchange of results of technical, scientific, and socioeconomic research. Article 18, which is on technical and scientific cooperation, and here the convention calls for international technical and scientific cooperation through international institutions as well as through national institutions, but also specifically calls for technical and scientific cooperation among parties on different aspects, including cooperation in the development and use of technologies, as well as indigenous and traditional technologies, as well as cooperation in technical training of personnel and exchange of experts. It also establishes the clearinghouse mechanism to promote and facilitate technical and scientific cooperation. I hope all of you are aware of this clearinghouse. We have the central part of the clearinghouse is managed by us, but every country is supposed to have a national node of this clearinghouse mechanism. Article 18 also calls for establishment of joint research programs and joint ventures for development of technologies. Next slide. And here, I think I've had over and over discussion about the role of Substar. So I won't repeat this, but just for the record that a body, a technical scientific body was established. And this is an avenue where expertise is can be harvested, mobilized and deployed to support implementation of the convention. But the COP can also establish other subsidiary bodies particularly to provide technical and scientific advice. And you've heard from Hedrick and others talking about other bodies, smaller bodies, not just the subsidiary bodies, but other bodies that can support the implementation. And I'll talk about that. Next slide. So then we have a slew of decisions that COP has taken that recognize or highlight the importance of mobilizing and deploying technical and scientific expertise. And I singled out a few of these just for emphasis. The recent decision on decision 15.2 about the need for mobilizing scientific and technical evidence base to support implementation of the GBF. The decision 15.8 on capacity building and technical and scientific cooperation, which builds on earlier decisions like 14.24 and others, which I've highlighted. And this particular decision made, I think, a step that we've been yearning for over this many years, and establish a mechanism for technical and scientific cooperation that will comprise of a network of regional and sub-regional support centers, which will be overseen by or supported by a global support center. So this is a major development that if you are not aware of, as scientists, as experts, technical experts, you should be aware of, because it's evolving. We've embarked on the process. We just received over 40 applications for entities that want to provide these regional and sub-regional support centers, and we'll be going through a process of selection and launching some of these centers where you can be able to contribute and support implementation of the GBF. The decision also urged and invited parties and relevant stakeholders to promote science, technology, and innovation, as well as other knowledge systems to support implementation of the GBF. The decision also called for promoting and strengthening relevant networks of institutions and communities of practice to facilitate the exchange of biodiversity-related information, experiences, skills, and know-how. But it also called on parties and relevant stakeholders to develop solutions based on innovative technologies embedded in local contexts. So all these provide avenues through which technical and scientific expertise can be deployed to support the convention, but also its protocols, and in particular the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Strategy Framework, and that was adopted last December. Then I've highlighted a number of decisions. I've had you talk about the IPBES throughout the presentation, and the COP has been really looking at cooperating with the IPBES and making maximum use of the knowledge and the information and the data and the analysis, the scenarios that have been developed through IPBES, and bringing them into the CBD process to support implementation of the convention and its protocols. And in particular, it's going to be even more particularly important in implementing the global biodiversity framework. Next slide. So I've talked about the Kunming-Montreal Global Framework. This is the Bible now. This is what all of us are talking about. And the framework itself underlines the importance of technical expertise and the scientific expertise to be deployed to support its implementation. Right from Goal D, that talks about having adequate means of implementation, to Target 20, that talks about strengthening capacity building and development, access to and transfer of technology, as well as promotion of access to innovation, and also strengthening joint technology development, joint scientific research programs, as well as joint scientific research and monitoring capacities. And Section C, which talks about considerations for implementation of the GBF, that highlights the importance of science and innovation, and noting that the implementation of the framework should be based on scientific evidence and traditional knowledge and practices, also recognizing the role of science, technology, and innovation. And then the last section, Section K, calls for raising awareness of the critical role of science, technology, innovation to strengthen scientific and technical capabilities, to monitor biodiversity, to address knowledge gaps, and also to develop innovative solutions to improve the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. So as you can see, the framework itself really puts a lot of emphasis on trying to use the best available scientific and technical expertise out there, and technical knowledge to support its implementation. Next slide. So There are so many opportunities that technical and scientific expertise can be deployed in the CBD processes. I've had some of these already mentioned. Substage is the one and the most obvious way channel through which this can be provided to support implementation. And we have so many ad hoc expert technical groups. We have so many informal advisory committees. We have so many liaison groups under the CBD, all these to provide advice to the subsidiary bodies and also to provide advice to the secretariat. But there are also opportunities to be able to organize either parallel or back-to-back events during these major events. For example, we have the Science Policy Forum for biodiversity that is organized at every COP. This is an opportunity for scientists and experts to come and exchange views, but also make sure that they make recommendations that COP can take up and include in to support, to guide implementation. CBD Secretariat and partners have started organizing the technology and innovation fairs and expos. We've organized one at COP14 in Egypt, but unfortunately, because of COVID and the rest, we were unable to organize it at COP15, but we'll be organizing this at COP16 in a big way. So this is again an opportunity where you can come and showcase your expertise, showcase your technologies, showcase the know-hows that are out there that can support parties to implement. And of course, side events during these major meetings. Many institutions organize these side events, which are very valuable in providing expertise and input to parties in their negotiations. But also when actually I find it more when you go back to your countries to implement. And many of these side events produce a lot of useful information. Then there are so many initiatives that through which expertise can be deployed and used. Somebody talked about the Consortium of Scientific Partners for Biodiversity, the CSP. We have the Biodiversity Indicator Partnership. Last week in New York, there was a launch of operational launch of the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, which is going to be, I think, another, again, we use a wonderful opportunity that we can use to deploy the expertise to support implementation at the country level. And we have the upcoming Global Knowledge Support Service for Biodiversity, which again will be a useful avenue through which knowledge and expertise can be mobilized and made available. And of course, I've just talked about the regional and sub-regional technical and scientific operation support centers that will be selecting and launching in the coming months. So all these provide opportunities through which scientific and technical expertise can be deployed. I think the next one is my last slide. And I think the critical importance of technical and scientific operations can be underrated. Experts can help to contribute to evidence-based planning. Right now, for example, many countries are in the process of developing their national biodiversity strategies and action plans. This is where science and expertise and is required to make sure that the new NBSAPs being revised are really grounded in science, in evidence. And also the process of policy making and decision making, programming and project design, implementation, monitoring and reporting. This can't be emphasized. The importance of deploying available expertise to support these processes can't be underemphasized and overemphasized. And lastly, the need, the contribution to promoting and facilitating the development, the transfer and the use of innovative technologies and know-how. This is critical, very critical at all stages, from planning all the way to reporting. You need the technologies to be deployed to make processes efficient, to make processes more effective. So that's all I managed to put together, and recognizing the time we have, I think I'll leave it at that, and I'll be happy to share experiences. But the opportunities, we have so many opportunities through which your expertise and your scientific knowledge can be deployed to support the CBD and its protocols. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Very, very interesting. I may have a question, maybe more about your role at the Secretariat. So can you speak a bit more about the capacity building unit and knowledge management? What you are doing?
Yeah, sure. Okay, the capacity building, especially knowledge management, is actually one of the biggest in the Secretariat. Right from capacity building and development, which involves we mobilize first of all tools and capacity development tools that are out there and make them available to you through our clearinghouse mechanism. That's one role that we are playing as a Secretariat. But also we organize regional training activities. My colleagues, not only my unit, but also we work with colleagues within the Secretariat to organize these trainings and deploy them. We have online training courses as well, working very closely with Infomia and other those that have online platforms. And we of course, as part of our Secretariat, our responsibility is to collect all this information and feed it back into this SBI and COP to provide further guidance on implementation. So that's one work stream. The other work stream is the technical and scientific cooperation, where right now we are, of course, managing the BioBridge initiative, for those of you who are aware of it, which is helping to provide the expertise or linking and matchmaking those that can provide support and those that need the support. But also this new technical and scientific cooperation mechanism that has been established by COP is under this unit. And we're in the process of deploying, setting up these support centers. So our role will be to connect and coordinate with all these centers and make sure they have the support they need. And of course, facilitating technology transfer. But as Secretariat, of course, besides organizing these fairs and expo that I talked about, this has been quite challenging to figure out how exactly we can play a role. But we have a database on existing technologies that are relevant to biodiversity, and we use also the expos to showcase these existing technologies and innovations that parties can make use of. Then the work stream on knowledge management is also a broad one. This includes the management of the central port of the clearinghouse mechanism, and also the development of we just launched an initiative called Knowledge Management for Biodiversity Initiative. And right now we are running a series of webinars. Actually, I would encourage you to participate. They'll be very informative. But this is to support implementation of the knowledge management component of the GBF, which was deferred. No decision was taken, it was deferred. However, work begins because the implementation of the GBF already started. So some elements of this is being implemented, for example, through these online webinars, and we will be organizing a series of knowledge management for biodiversity challenges, basically workshops, bringing together countries to talk about what their knowledge gaps are and what solutions we can have to support parties to implement knowledge management at the country level. So in the nutshell, and of course the IT team is also under this unit, but this supports beyond our CHM and other platforms. It also supports conference services and other parts of the unit. So that's what the unit does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I am an expert and I need a resource, how can I find it by the CBD?
Yeah. Okay. So we used to have a roster of experts that was kind of discontinued. We've not been paying a lot of attention to it. partly because it was being underutilized. We put in a lot of effort to create it, put in experts, especially for the biosafety. At that time, it was mostly the biosafety experts. But I mean, over the years, its utility was low, and the amount of efforts and resources we are putting in. So right now, the best way, if you need expertise, write to the Secretariat. That email most likely will land on my desk, and I will make sure that I consult with my colleagues to be able to identify which resource can be able to respond to your need. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone of the audience have a question for Mr. Tamale. I think everyone is tired with the long day.
Yeah.
So if not, thanks, many thanks, of course. Yeah. If not, I would not be too long with you, Harry. Thank you very much joining us today. It was really interesting to have also your point of view, and I think we will close the meeting. So just a few information about the next meeting. So the COP4CBD project will continue. So it's a project from this year to 2026. So 4-year project, and there will be other training session. Particularly the next one is in beginning of November for a CHM national focal point in Brussels, and we will organize also something next year in Paris. So please stay connected with COP4CBD. Everything will be available on website. Also the presentation and the video recording of today. And we hope that you enjoyed the training session today, and don't hesitate to contact us. Of course, we are here for you. And I just say good evening to everybody, and see you soon.